It feels like you came into that with a fairly strong pre-existing ideological bias, and all the information you had on all.
Look at the. As soon as okay, I've said this to Sitch, and I'm sorry for pausing so much, but I'm pausing here because look at the look on Rudyard's face.
I know, it's very funny.
Like
It's very funny.
this. Hold on. Right now, he is thinking this motherfucker is accusing me. The most biased person on the internet is accusing me of having some sort of ideological bias. the most post hoc rationalize the biggest
Yes.
post hoc rationalizer on BreadTube is accusing me of being driven by my elephant,
I know.
motherfucker.
He doesn't. Vaush doesn't even know anything about the elephant.
No, he doesn't know anything.
Well, that's what's funny because he immediately launches into this saying, you're just motivated reasoning. You're just post hoc reasoning right now. Doesn't talk about height or understand height, I guess. It's like they just got it. I don't know, from whatever source Denham's got this from. Maybe this is the new thing. They're all just going to say, you're motivated reasoning. Like this is just the trend now.
It is, yeah. But they can't necessarily point it out. I mean, what is the moral intuition? Is it climate change activism? Is that the moral intuition that's driving all this, Sitch? Is it?
It's fear of authoritarianism, it seems like.
That could be true. That's definitely true.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't. I don't. This is why I would love to. You got to dig in when you're having conversations with these people. When they accuse you of post hoc rationalization, when they accuse you of motivated reasoning, you got to say, what is the moral intuition that you think I'm trying to satiate here?
That would be a good counter to that.
Yeah. They will say racism, sexism, homophobia, and transphobia.
You're like, that's not a moral intuition.
Well, I think it is. I think you can say, like, if you're homophobic, you can rationalize
No, but he's
your
not going to say
homophobia.
he's not going to say like disgust, like disgust of
Right. Yes.
something.
No. Yeah. He doesn't know this
Right.
stuff. Hence the reason. I mean, Vaush is he's such a lolcow, man. This is so this is so good. This is so good.
All the many subjects that you touched on in that video, you pulled them together to narrativize them into a story consistent with your pre-existing beliefs. Like you looked up at the stars and you wanted to see a dinosaur, and it didn't really matter what the stars looked like. You had to find the dinosaur in the constellation. You know what I mean? So there were like a bunch of pieces of info there that I think were contradictory or didn't fit together that well, and it gave me the impression altogether that you were inconsistently reactionary in ways I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
So
Yeah, so he's already calling him a reactionary. When he says he's
inconsistently reactionary.
which he says he's center right. I made
Right.
sure I got that out of the video. I want to know where this
Right.
guy's political standing was. Political
The
self-identification.
reason he's calling him inconsistently reactionary is because he wants to call him a dirty reactionary Nazi. But then, as you point out, there's those little parts where he's like, well, I'm in favor of gay rights. I'm in favor of police reform. I'm in favor of, fighting climate change. So then Vaush's brain is like, I don't know how to classify this person in an easy left right wing dynamic. Like, and then his brain starts to overheat and he just doesn't know how to respond.
Great point. Yeah, great point. That is exactly what he's saying.
And this is a pro tip. Now, I've been guilty of doing this too, and this is my bad. Sometimes when I talk to someone, I start off in like a really bad spot. Like I'll attack them right off the bat. Even if my tone of voice isn't aggressive, I'll ask them a very aggressive question right off the bat, which is my bad. You should, even when you're talking to someone that you don't like, if you wanted to be somewhat productive. Now, of course, Vaush maybe doesn't give a shit about being somewhat productive. And maybe this is all just him performing for his audience. You should not start off the question saying, hey, I think you're guilty of motivated reasoning. Fuck you. Like, that's not a good way to start a conversation.
Yes.
Be like, well, what do you think? Why did you make the video? Where did you come from? What is your view here? And then when they start opening up about it, then you start to, if you want to question it, you can say, okay, well, do you think X? Do you think Y? Kind of move in there. Don't just be like, you're wrong.
Yeah, this is going to cause the defenses to go up immediately. Even,
Yes.
Even if you're not interested in having a productive conversation, let's say you've got a dishonest actor that you really want to like dressed down in front of everyone. It's still a good technique to start a comfortable dialogue with them so they feel comfortable answering honestly. If you ask them some pointed question in the very beginning, the defenses are going to go up, and you're never going to get to the point where they are going to be answering honestly.
Right. That is true.
I disagree. So as I've studied history, being fair and objective isn't giving 50-50 to both sides. Being fair and objective is looking for the truth and seeing where the truth leads you. And across history, you see periods of fanaticism. And we see a lot of the prerequisites for periods of fanaticism that exist today. And across history, you saw the French Revolution, you saw the religious fanaticism like the Puritans of the 17th century, you saw the Spanish Inquisition. Before that, you saw the flagellants after the Black Death, or guys that would basically whip themselves after the Black Death because they felt guilt, that they felt immense survivor's guilt they were still alive. And before that, you had all sorts of things across the ancient world and peasant rebellions in the Middle Ages as well. And the common thread between all...
Vaush is typing right now. He's not even paying attention. I don't know about you, Sitch, but I can't normally type words into, there's this thing when you're thinking about words that you can't really listen to words at the same time. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It depends what he's typing, obviously. But...
Oh,
if
he's taking a note, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Is that when times get tough like they are now, where basically average income has gone down, a lot of people live really hard lives in a lot of ways. And under those conditions, people get radicalized. And I think social justice is that radical movement. And I try to build my work for posterity. And because of that, I cannot stand aside when social justice, I think, is a radical movement, and to give it an objective opinion would be to state thus. And so my argument going into it was that social justice is radical, which I will prove as this debate goes along. But at the same time, I just wanted to make something that posterity would be able to look back upon, where every single era of history, you have the people who would basically say, we need to give both sides argument. And the truth is complicated. And because of that, you see all sorts of no one side can hold the truth because no single worldview is capable of encapsulating it. But like before,
based enlightened centrism.
I know, this is so good. This is so good. And he states a clear objective. He's like,
yes,
social justice, the current social justice movement, which we're going to start calling social vengeance movement, because that's
social vengeance. Yes.
That's more akin to what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
So he's saying that social vengeance movement is radical, and to say anything other than that is deviating from the truth. So, and he wants to make an objective argument, so he's going to bring objective facts to make that argument, which is clear.
Yes, which is clear. I think this is a really good opening. It's kind of funny because Vaush, he starts the conversation by saying, "Your motivated reasoning, fuck you. Now respond to me." And he doesn't really respond to that at all.
Right.
He just he responds as if Vaush asked him like the question he should have asked him to start with, which is, why did you make your video and where are you coming from?
Right. But he does.
So he just sort of ignores what Vaush said in the beginning and just says, this is where I'm coming from. And it's funny because he's sort of alluding to like the whole wokeism is a religion, bad times breed fanaticism, or turbulent, troubled times and troubled circumstances can lead to fanaticism. And we seem to be in that situation right now, essentially.
Well, he does technically respond to the motivated reasoning in that he says, here it was the objective of the video, and if I'm appealing to actual facts, then I'm not motivated reasoning, because the facts could overturn
he's just saying like, this is where I'm coming from. Like it turned it into a positive,
right?
Essentially, instead of just being negative or just being defensive, he's like, no, this is where I'm coming from.
Right.
Boom. Right here.
Yes, excellent.
And it's a good answer, and I agree with him completely. I think he even said in his video, it's funny because he has kind of the same thing where he thinks that like the housing crash sort of started all of this too. So
yeah,
based.
Yeah. He says all of this is being driven by wealth inequality.
Yes.
What's
yes.
how's Vaush attacking this guy?
I know. Because this guy is anti-social justice, and that's all that matters.
Right. But it's performative social justice. This is the thing. This is why it's the video is so ironic, because he's saying Vaush doesn't give a fuck about helping people or wealth
Right.
inequality or any of the things that he claims to care about. Vaush cares about him. He's ultimately selfish, and he's doing this for selfish reasons. Even in his original video, he points that out. He says that social vengeance doesn't seek to help people in any way, shape, or form.
Right. Well, and also, I mean, part of what's interesting about this is that for a lot of the leftists and socialists specifically, they don't really care. I don't think they really care about most of the issues they virtue signal about. What they really care about is implementing some kind of socialism in the country. And so I think that's why you could be in situations like with What If, where he can agree with some foundational things like wealth inequality and climate change and all this other stuff, but that all goes out the window if you're not a socialist, essentially.
Right.
Because that's the big ask. All the other stuff, all the social vengeance stuff is just the constructed bombs that they want to use to deconstruct liberal society to get the socialist utopia they think they want.
Right. The bombs have to go off. If the bombs don't go off, then their ultimate goal is never achieved.
Right. That's exactly a good way to think about it. Because like me and you and What If and a lot of people who are sort of like in the center, right, center, left spheres are out here trying to diffuse these bombs.
Yeah, exactly.
That want to destroy our Western democracy. We're like, listen, we agree that changes should happen and we need to make changes, but let's just dismantle these bombs that want to blow everything up, okay? And they're like, no, you're a Nazi. No.
Yeah. Sad.
I know.
World War II, you saw people who thought that starting the war was not a good idea. Before World War I, you saw people who thought that war would never happen. And in every era of history, conventional opinion was wrong. And I want to look for when conventional opinion is wrong.
So the term radical doesn't really have a consistent definition, but the way you use it suggests to me that you think it has a negative bent. If you're going to argue that social unrest is often caused by inequality or tumult, then I would agree with that. You could go back to the suffrage movement, the civil rights movement. You could go back to the abolitionist movement or the Revolutionary War. You could go back as far as you wanted. And yeah, generally, when things are a little bit less steady, people too tend to commit harder to more radical ideas. I guess the problem...
This is so weird too, because from Vaush, like Vaush should 100% be on board with about that concept, because that's basically what dialectical materialism from Marx is.
Right.
Is that, there's going to be some, unsteady material conditions causes conflict with the lower classes. And then, they fight with the upper classes, and then that breeds some kind of new system.
Yeah.
Which it's just, but because What If said it, he has to like kind of softball his agreement.
Right.
It's so funny. It's so funny.